Are we live? All right, we were going to let that stream on for a minute or two. So before I get into the show, somebody posted on here the dynamic duo.
And
then this guy.
Who's Batman and who's Robin? That's what I want to know.
Clayton Perry. Let's get this guy on the screen too. Yeah, the America tie.
America.
Says we're Batman and Robin, but which one of us is Robin? And I'm like, oh my God. I know where this is going. Batman is usually older.
Yes, more mature. And stronger.
And, well, I don't know about that. But maybe not as fleet of foot any longer.
Right.
But Clayton Perry is 100% Robin. All right. Let's get into it. Welcome to the, the broadcast here. Brian is working the camera. All right. I'm loving it. We got some help tonight. So, as always, like it, share it, tag a friend, push out the information. We try to do whatever's necessary to get good information out. We've got a couple of great guests tonight. We're going to get to them in a second. But we always want to start off with thanking our sponsors and the people who help make this happen. So, when we get into this, though, we've got some questions and some things, and I'm going to lay out the format a little different tonight. We're not going to get into a bunch of crazy talking stuff. We're going to go straight to facts and ideas. But at the beginning, we do thank, of course, Aligned Mortgage of Texas and Chris Cano for the use of this facility. It's fantastic. Hey, man, not too close, dude. It's showing the age. The age right there. Okay, you switched to the logo. Good job. So, Aligned Mortgage of Texas, the number one VA lender in the state of Texas. Chris Cano and his team are always taking care of us. They let us stream here. We appreciate it. If you have a question whatsoever about VA home loans, there is a great program that's coming up on Saturday, July 11th at 10 a.m. It's a live in-house presentation. What's the address out here? It is 5590 Summit Parkway. You can come out, you can join us, sit out in the audience, and just learn about how the VA loan process works. Clayton Perry and I, veterans of the United States Air Force, old man retire over here.
Yeah.
But we are very familiar with the VA home loan. But come out on the 11th, 10 a.m., 5590 Summit Parkway, and join us and just learn about VA home loans and what we offer veterans across the entire city. Thank you, Chris Connell, Line Mortgage. And, of course, our friends at AAA Garcia Bail Bonds. I know we all get tired of my corny joke, but I say it every week, regardless of the situation. 2 ways to get out of the Bexar County Jail. You can accidentally get left out, walk out, just kind of exit stage right for free. They may not even know you're gone for 24 to 48 hours. It's a good setup. Or you can get bonded out by AAA Garcia Bail Bonds and our buddy Louis Garcia, who is always knocking it out. We love Louis. We appreciate you. Thank you very much for that. Tyler Hall and Speedy Salts. Tyler's always with us. He will knock on your door, drop off and deliver your salt. The guy is the man. He helps us on the show. Man of faith, good friend, Tyler Hall, Speedy Salt, we thank you. And our realtor friend, of course, Brian Pena from the Torado Group and Remax Realty. If you need a realtor and you're looking for some work in business, give a shout out to Brian Pena. Brian, you got a Facebook page?
Sure do.
What's it called?
Brian Pena Realtor.
Brian Pena. Hello, Brockhouse. It's called Brian. I could have guessed that it's called Brian Pena Realtor.
Pretty close, man.
It's pretty close. But reach out to Brian. If you need any help or connections, reach out to me. Direct message me, private message, whatever, and I'll connect you with Brian. Going to take care of you, help you get a home in San Antonio. So we bring it all here together, man. Lending, we're at the Line Mortgage. We got realtors, we got support, we got bonding for you in case something bad happens, man. You need to get out of jail. So we're there for you. We appreciate you. Like it, share it, tag it, push the information out, and let's keep going. So tonight, 2 guests, and we're simply going to talk. Our 2 guests, Clayton Perry, who's the current council member for District 10, is in his 2nd term out of, I'm sure, is going to be at least 4 terms, and then after that, who knows what he's going to do. But Councilman Clayton Perry's joining us. We're going to talk about him, and then after about 30 minutes, we're going to bring on Trish DeBerry. She's running for County Commissioner in Precinct 3. And I've got 10 questions right here that we're going to ask. So we are not going to mess around.
I haven't even seen them.
Clayton has not seen the questions. And we're going to talk about what's going on in the city, what's happening, and the things that are occurring at City Hall, because you need to know. Not from Greg, who hasn't been down there in a year, but from Clayton, who's down there right now. So, Clayton, welcome. We appreciate you, man. 2nd time to the show.
Hey, thank you very much.
I got 1 question for you first off. Where'd you get that tie?
Man, I got this tie from a dear friend of mine who actually went up to the Twin Towers right after they had collapsed, and they had some vendors around that around that area, and one of them was selling these ties, and he actually purchased it for me and brought it back here to San Antonio. And I wear this like Sunday. This past Sunday was Flag Day, so I thought it was appropriate to wear that today to show honor to our flag. And I really enjoy this tie because everybody really compliments me on this tie. This is fantastic.
It's a good tie.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to give credit where credit is due. It's a pretty cool tie. And, I almost want to put it on right now myself. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you, as always. And you had a day at City Council today.
Yes, we did.
You were working today. You were on the clock.
I was on the clock. In fact, I came straight here from there.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Like I said, 10 questions. We'll go through them. And we just want to talk about what's happening, right? I want people, when they're listening to you tonight, just to kind of get the insider's perspective. And when they're watching this from, in the days after this, as we push it out and boost the program so people can see who can't watch it live, I want people to see it and watch it and understand what's happening at City Hall, because they need to know what's going on behind closed doors, how those conversations are working, and what people are thinking. So First question I have, and some of these are cold from the questions that I've received over the last couple of weeks. So, what in the hell's going on at City Council? Like, that is... Let's talk about City Hall, period. The council you're on. Give us a rundown and description of the council, how they're acting, how you feel about it, what's different from this term than your last term.
Well, I can say that this council is even further left than the last council was. And we had some pretty liberal folks last time that left, but this council is even further left than what we had before. So I'm the only conservative on the council. A lot of 10-to-1 votes, and that's what's you can tell whenever there's a 10-to-1 vote, you can almost guarantee who that one is, and that's me. But overall, we've got a very liberal council, and that causes problems because, in my view anyway, about budgeting, what we're getting started right now on what we're going to be spending your tax dollars on, and that is where you really need to pay attention and get your input in to the city on where you want to see your tax dollars. Would you want to see more social programs, or do you want better streets? Do you want more safety and security with police and fire, those kind of issues? And that's where you got to get your input to your councilman, as well as the mayor and city staff. So very, very important to get those inputs in. And like I said, I can already see, just by some very preliminary discussions about this next budget, is that we're going to see a skinnying down of our core requirements. And when I say core requirements, you know what I'm talking about, the basics of what we should be providing by the city charter. If you ever get a chance, I know it's boring reading, go and look at the city charter.
It'll put you to sleep.
But here's the things that it says that we're supposed to provide: safety and security, roads, parks, drainage, libraries. Those are the basic core requirements that we should be using your tax dollars on to support you. But what you've seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years is a gradual migration from those to more social programs. And you'll see that even more pronounced this year than we have ever before. And we've already seen it with this this CARES Act funding that we just passed 2 weeks ago. And I said it then, and I said it again today. When we looked at the statistics of the number of businesses that had gone out of business, micro business, less than 20 people, and then the small businesses, the rest of them, on how many have actually been shut down because of this COVID-19 business. It's amazing. And the number of minority businesses, the number of women-owned businesses, though they're all the backbone of what the city is all about. But yet, we spent the majority of that money on workforce training and the digital divide, which to me are long-term issues that we should not be spending that initial slug of money from the federal government called this CARES Act. We should have been putting more towards small business.
How much money was... And before we jump in, I see Trey Ware logged on out there. You know, Trey has us on the show from time to time.
Yeah.
Jonathan Delmer, Ray Rodriguez is out there. Debbie Hernandez, Tom Marks, everybody's logging on here. Keep liking it, sharing it, push it out. And of course, Trey of KTSA is a great show. He's on that morning drive, as well as Sean Rima following him up, and Jack Riccardi. They're always killing it. KTSA, check them out. Watch them live on their Facebook page too. So it's good to see you, Trey. But
absolutely,
that was almost $300 million, right?
Almost.
Of CARES Act money.
And out of that, $90 million, a little over $90 million was going for workforce training and this digital divide. Mm-hmm. Yes, we need workforce training, and we need a better internet system here in town, especially for school kids. Well, school isn't even in session right now, and this money could have better well been spent had it gone to grants for our small businesses to rehire these people so that they can afford their rent, they can afford gas, they can afford food, that kind of thing. But instead, we're giving cash to those folks that need it, and we're also giving cash to like Workforce Solutions Alamo College, community college.
It's a lot of money.
Over $90 million. And how much are we giving to small businesses? $38 million.
So let's jump into that one. I'm going to go down to there's a couple questions down on that one, but I think it's important. So what I notice, and is the elected officials right now who are screaming at the top of their lungs how broken the system is, right? So you've got the mayor, you got Mayor Ron Nirenberg, you got Nelson Wolf, who is basically the Uber mayor, right? Like he's absolutely in charge of Ron Nirenberg. You can tell every day those two are together. Nelson Wolf is driving this bus big time, right? So you got Nelson and Ron. You've got, I don't know why, Julian Castro's coming back in and mouthing off. So you've got a series of people who are talking a lot of trash right now about the state of San Antonio Police Department, the state of our policing, about the state of our income inequality. They're talking about where we're spending our money, right? So all of this, all these people complaining. And you know what comes into my mind when I hear them screaming and complaining and saying this is an absolutely terrible city? You've been in charge of this place for the last 25 years.
Absolutely.
Julian Castro, you cannot talk any negativity about the city when you were in charge yourself for 15 years. What was it, 15 years ago you started? I don't know, 2009 he won office. You can't complain about the results when you were leading this city yourself. You are responsible for it. So all that to wrap around, I look at what happens today. You see Nelson yesterday with Ron, and they come out and they mandate masks at small businesses. So a couple of questions. Number one, did you even know, how are you knowing what's happening with these updates, what the mayor and Nelson are doing? Is the council involved in the loop? And how do you feel about small businesses? Now they're bearing the brunt of it. Mm-hmm. We're putting enforcement of masks now on the small business owner, and if they don't do it, they're going to get fined $1,000. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, number one, I didn't know that this was even happening. All of a sudden, I get this text message from Councilman Garcia saying, hey, did you know that we're doing another mandatory mask thing? I said, no, what's going on? So I had my staff start to take a look at it, and sure enough, the county is coming out with this requirement for mandatory masks and fines if the businesses let people come in and do their business without wearing a mask. So I didn't know anything about it. Shortly before it was, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes before, I did get a call from the mayor.
Is it fair to say that the mayor is not including the council in the decisions when it comes to these health mandates?
Absolutely. There was nothing. Of course, this was a county order, but the mayor was right alongside with them. There's no way that the mayor didn't know about this beforehand. So, no, it was not coordinated. And this is the same thing that happened for the first 3 or 4 proclamations. No councilmen were brought in the loop. This was all directed by the mayor because legally he does have the authority to do that. But this should still be run by the council because this council is a team, supposed to be a team, with a leader saying, okay, this is what we need to do. We need your input. We need your comments. What's good, what's bad, and then I'll come up with a consensus. Maybe not 100% agreement, but consensus across the council on what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So no, this was not coordinated. I was very unhappy with it.
It is eye-opening that, we're well documented. Ron and I in a tough mayoral race last year, and one of the biggest gripes and complaints, obviously, from everybody was his lack of working with the city council 2017 to 2019, right? And he doesn't communicate, right? Doesn't work with people. So then he gets in a tough re-election. He came out the winner, so be it. And then we move in after that, and you would think, lesson learned, need to communicate and work with my colleagues. Well, and he's really just not doing it.
That's what he said. I heard that. but there was no lesson learned.
You got to communicate.
There has not been a change.
If you're in charge of the whole thing there, even if one council member's out of the loop, I'd always try to remind people is there's not just one person getting left out of the loop. There's 155,000 people behind that Clayton Perry represents.
That's right.
So District 10 has 155,000 people, right?
Yep.
They're all lined up around you. They're all supporting you. You are their voice at the city council. So if you are not brought into the loop, Ron Nirenberg, you're not ignoring one council person. You're ignoring everybody they represent, the 155.
Sure.
That's their voice. You're carrying the message.
Exactly.
And it's
and that's what's bad about it. So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed from that first 2 years.
What are you hearing from the businesses in your community about the mask ordinance?
I haven't really heard. I haven't had time to really reach out to the businesses, find out about them. Now, I can tell you this: I'm disappointed in the governor. I'll be right out there saying that, because the governor said initially, we can't mandate wearing masks, and no fines, no jail time, no nothing. Well, he kind of changed his tune when Judge Wolf came out with this about making businesses required if you're going to go into their business, they can require you to wear a mask. And now there's a fine associated with that also.
$1,000 an instance.
Yeah, and the governor kind of talked about it. Yeah, that was always in the plan, or that's what I really meant, and the cities are finally catching on. Well, dadgummit, be right up front with it at the beginning, because what happens now, everybody's confused. Do I? Don't I? What are the businesses supposed to do? So no, I have not reached out to the business community, but I can tell you that here's another thing that we're putting on businesses. We've hammered businesses for the last since I came on council, since 2017, and we're continuing to hammer them. They've already been hammered by this COVID problem, and so many shut down and out of business, lack of employment, that kind of thing. And here we're putting another fine on them if somebody walks into their store.
What you're doing, what the council, what the mayor has done with and Nelson, they're pitting business owner against customer.
Mm-hmm.
So now the business owner has to engage a customer who might be wanting to exercise their rights, what they believe to be constitutional rights.
Yeah.
And we've heard the language and talking points, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's my right, man. Whatever you want to call it, whether you believe it or not, it's their belief.
Yep.
You agree with them or not. But now the business owner has to engage that person and say, I'm sorry, I can't serve you. I'm not going to pay.
And loses that business.
And loses the business, because I don't want Ron to show up with code compliance and give me a $1,000 ticket.
That's right.
By the way, Ron Nirenberg's not going anywhere out in the city to be issuing tickets. But you cannot. It's a bad spot for a business owner to be in.
It really is.
And it's unfair. And you know what? We don't know if this is going to end up. And look, they say it's a second wave and all these other things. And here come. I don't know where everybody was complaining and crying when there were 5,000 protesters walking downtown, half of them unmasked, and the mayor standing in the middle of them with no mask on himself occasionally. Where was his righteousness and fines? Yeah. How do you feel about that when the protesters were out there?
It's not fair. And it's not fair to the business community. It's not fair to our individuals across San Antonio. And it's, there is personal responsibility that people should be using, and that's kind of what the governor said also. But for him to say, okay, counties, cities, y'all go off and do whatever you want, that's not what he initially said in his proclamation about opening Texas. Open Texas is his portion, and now this seems like it's taking a step backwards.
It's taking more than a step backwards. Let's talk about those riots and stuff. Antonio Lee logged on a minute ago, chimed in. He was one of the lead protesters. Great guy. Yeah. Came on the show, and we had a great dialogue about it. But I want to talk about Black Lives Matter, the looters, San Antonio Police Department, defund SAPD. Give me your rundown on how you feel about this defund SAPD movement. So quick recap. We know we have council members talking about cutting budgets by 20%, reducing SAPD personnel and equipment, you name it, right? Demilitarizing the San Antonio Police Department. They talk about polygraphing them to find the racists in the department, right? Polygraph the candidates and polygraph the police officers, find out who they are. So the war against police is at an all-time high at City Hall. It's odd that I don't think a lot of the community feels that way, and we'll get to that in a second. But walk us through your belief on what are you going to be able to do down there? You're the lone wolf, or the lone voice on this one, right? So walk us through. There's a couple that'll help you, but walk us through your game plan and approach on dealing with this defund police, which I think is an absolutely horrible idea. That's short-sighted, that they don't know the facts. But give them some facts and walk us through how you're going to push back on that.
Yeah, well, 80% of the police budget is with personnel, health benefits, all of that stuff that goes along with a person. 80% of that budget. So if they're wanting to find savings, or if they want to defund the police department, that 20% are must-haves. That's like equipment and training and that kind of thing. So to defund or reduce the police budget means a reduction in the numbers. I'm against that. It's taken us 3 years to finally get up to the number of authorized people out on the streets.
2,385 people.
3 years to get. We had about a 500 police shortfall in 3 years, and you were on the first couple of budgets where we added to the budgets additional training classes and that kind of thing to build up the police force to where it should be and not have that delta or that misalignment on how many you have versus how many are authorized. So we've gotten up to that. In fact, right now they say we're about 50 over. I've got a problem with that number, but we're at that mark now. I don't want to go in and take money away from them now, because the only way you're going to take money away is take away authorizations and reduce the number of police again. And what I'm going to tell them is, hey, if y'all want to do that, take the police out of your districts. Take them out of your districts.
I love that.
But I want the same number of policemen in my district.
That was a great
10,
answer. That was a great answer.
And y'all take it out of your districts if that's what you want to do.
And they tried, when you said that, I was rolling, because the neighborhoods that need the police presence are going to be suffering even worse without them.
Absolutely.
2,385 authorized positions, and if that's what we have in staffing, I am here to tell you that is probably about 500 police officers short of what we really need, period, to match like-sized municipalities across the country.
Yes.
Dallas has 20% fewer residents than we do, and 500 more police officers. It's right in that range. Now, how you calculate how many police officers you need, it's up for debate. But what's not up for debate is that if you try to defund the department, you remove police officers. That's the only way to get to that 20% number. And if you remove police officers, who doesn't get their call answered? Right now, they're struggling. Right now, they run $15 million of overtime every year. So if you cut them and you start reducing them, something's going to happen to crime, and it's not going to be a positive. Crime is going to increase. These neighborhoods that are struggling are going to struggle worse. And I don't know about you, but one of the things I always heard, and tell us how your residents and neighborhoods feel about it. My neighborhoods always said they want more police.
Yep.
Is that the same in District 10?
That's the same thing in District 10. They want more presence out there, more presence out in the field, going through their neighborhoods, watching, listening, and helping them to not only to be safe, but to feel safe. And that's a big thing, feeling safe and actually being safe. And that is so very important, to feel safe, to be able to go walking down the street, being able to park your car out in front of your house. Yeah, sure, having it locked and that kind of thing, but not scared about coming out the next day and all four wheels are gone, sitting on blocks or totally gone. So there's a lot to that people, they want the additional police officers. They don't want a reduction and then putting it into other programs across the city.
This is going to be I think, and I don't know, I think this would be a defining moment for San Antonio. And let's have the debate, by all means.
Sure.
Let's get into it, because I would love to settle it once and for all, this question, and I want you to ponder this one for a second, but this is the tough question. I'm willing to argue that what the city council doesn't represent the real views of the city. Because let's face it, I was down there. I got elected by 13% of the voters in District 6. So I won a majority of the 13% of the 100,000 voters. So I get it. A small percentage elects, council members elects us, elected everybody. The mayor won with 61,000 votes. There's 1.5 million people in the city.
Right.
He won with 61,000 votes. So the question is, and I believe this, do you think that council is representing what they're talking about right now, the true will of the community when it comes to defunding police?
Well, let me put it this way. I go out and I listen to my communities as much as I can, and that goes to going to different HOA meetings, neighborhood associations, and then we host a community meeting every month as well. And I get information from that, as well as sending out my own surveys and my newsletters to find out, get the pulse of my community. Is that representative of District 10? I think it is. Now, you might argue that we don't get enough people out there voting, but those voters, they're taking that responsibility, and those that don't take that responsibility suffer the consequences. And that's the way I look at it. If you don't take that responsibility and get out there and vote for who you think should be leading your district or this city, don't go complaining about it afterwards. That's tough cookies.
Well, I think a lot of council members, you can know over the last several years, you know which council members engage in their neighborhoods. I mean,
Yeah.
you could tell. You could tell who's out there working it. I pride myself on that, was always getting in the neighborhoods. I know you were in those neighborhoods
Yep.
because I see the pictures all the time. Hey, Roberto Trevino, did we differ on things? Sure. Was he out in the neighborhoods? He's out there working those communities.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go down the line and see some of them that do understand who is doing what. And what? Look, you're there to represent District 10,
Yep.
District 6, Roberto District 1, and you're going to take that message to the fight, right? You're concerned about the whole city, but at the end of the day, you represent District 10.
That's right.
So you have to take that message down there. The reason I think this is a great debate to have no matter what is because if it ends up at the ballot box, there's no greater scoreboard right at the end of the day. And the defund police movement, I think, is ultimately needs a score. Like, we need to find out who's really behind this. I'm willing to wager that it's probably about no more than a quarter of the city that believe we should defund the department and reduce police officers. Now, do they want to make sure there's more money going towards mental health issues? Of course, people always want that. But it's already an underfunded, understaffed department.
Right.
So to cut means to remove somewhere that's going to be painful. So I like the idea of getting into the debate, right? And okay, let's talk about police brutality. Let's talk about the real numbers. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the fact there was only 18 use of force incidents in all of 2019.
Right.
18.
Yep.
The San Antonio Police Department is a superior police department in the nation.
Absolutely. I feel that we have the best. It was just not just a police department. A lot of people are looking at this, and I look at it as a whole, safety and security, which includes both the fire department and police department. And the fire department, the fire chief just got voted on by his peers as being the best fire chief in the U.S. And that's a big honor, and that goes a long way on our entire fire department. Our police, year after year, we get awards also from people that are going out, going above and beyond, being heroes out there in the field, and I think that's indicative of our police department. So I am a very big supporter of the police, and when I hear people saying we need to get rid of them, that's fantasy land. That is and I agree. I think the majority of people here in the city don't want to see a decrease in the police department. Yes, there is a vocal minority, and I can tell you, I just came from Citizens to Be Heard in the
they're calling you out down there?
Safety committee. They were calling me out, and I gave them all kind of information and was praising the police. But they said, "Hey, that's not good enough. It's not good enough." And
that's the problem.
So
that's the problem, right? It's not ever going to be good enough.
Yeah, it's never going to be good enough. And then, how much money will it take to, let's say, give them enough training? What's enough training when we already provide double the amount of training to this police force of what the requirement is, the minimum requirement? So I think we're going above and beyond what is required of our policemen in training, and even the initial training.
It's a superior
it really
academy.
Is. It
really is. So a couple of final questions here. I want to make sure we get to it. We talked about the BLM and the looters and the rioting and stuff like that. So we saw that before with the Travis Park statue. We saw the Black Lives Matter engage. That's why I think it's important that we understand really what this represents from our city. And I hope, and I know you, I know you're going to go down there and you're going to talk about what San Antonio really is. Mm-hmm. And people need to know that. It's not enough just to say how bad we are. One of the things that disappoints me about what's coming out of City Hall is it's all what you can't do and how bad we are. and I hear you down there talking about who we really are and how good we can be, and let's be smart about the decisions, right? Bring the facts out. If you're a fact-based, you're famous for saying this one. If this is a fact-based council, make the decisions on the facts.
Where's the data?
Where's the data?
Where's the data to support this? And every instance, when you look at the data, we are right up there at the top.
At the top, yes.
And they come out with these instances, isolated instances, that you can't paint an entire population of our city or an entire organization off something that didn't even happen here. So it just drives me crazy. We're a data-driven council, but where's the data to support that?
Yeah, on point. We're not Minneapolis. We're not San Francisco. We're not Seattle. We're not Chaz Autonomous Zone. We're not a bunch of knuckleheads, disrespect. No, that's not San Antonio. And I don't know why the council lives in this world that they got to adopt other people's problems into your own home. Think about your own home. If your neighbor's having problems with his or her spouse, you don't walk into your house after talking to them and say, well, geez, I need to make sure I have problems with my spouse tonight. If my buddy's fighting with his wife and it ain't going so well and they're in an argument and he's in the doghouse, I'm not going home and saying, solidarity, let me bring those problems into my house. I need to fight with my wife tonight. I need to make sure that I sleep on the couch.
Wow, I'm glad I don't have a spouse.
Well, yeah. But you get what I'm saying. You don't bring somebody else's arguments or drama into your home. Focus on what you can focus on. By the way, my wife logged on earlier, and I always have to say, Councilman Clayton Perry is my wife's favorite councilman.
Yes.
Has always been.
Yes.
It kills me. It kills me.
I love it.
So I got one more.
Thank you, Annalisa.
Yeah, she loves the guy. Last question, and we're going to part ways as always. You can always come back, man. Anytime you want to. We're doing here at 6:15. You can walk in here and, man, we're always up for a conversation. How are you staying focused during all this? What goals are you trying to get out of it? And if you had one or two words to give the city about positive, give what you think they could be doing right now. Wrap it up with that and let them know, because, man, I think the city needs it now more than ever.
Well, really what the city really needs is what I like to call it common sense leadership, where that seems to have gotten lost in all the noise, and whoever is yelling the loudest seems to get the most attention. Not the run-of-the-mill person out there that's going to work every day, providing for his family, and making ends meet. And even those that aren't quite making ends meet, they're out there working and they're giving it their best. And I think that's the majority of this town. But whoever is yelling the loudest at any particular time, and we're going to have some more of those coming up here shortly.
Oh, yeah, we are.
They seem to get the attention and the favor of most of the people on council. And I'm not that way. I'm going to be listening and looking, trying to apply some of that common sense to it, and trying to provide some leadership up there on council. But I'm just one vote, and I do a lot of talking up there. But
I think you're going to get more support than you know it's coming your way. Look, man, we appreciate you, and as always, thank you for being you, and continue the fight, because there's a ton of us out here that recognize that. And just keep going, brother. We thank you, man. You keep it happening. It's good to see you again.
Man. All right.
Yeah, that's for you, Ron. Next Monday, I'm going to pay you $1,000 because I'm not wearing my mask. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. It's a joke. Couple of things, and we just let them sneak right across. Yeah, sneak right across there. Yeah, cut my screenshot out there. So, here we go. All right. Trish DeBerry is going to come in here in a second. A couple things to wrap that conversation up, though. And look, I saw some comments out there, and look, we can find ways. And I noticed Muhammad Rasul, and I think Brielle also commented out there too about Councilman Perry, his district doesn't represent the city. So, Brielle, I don't disagree with you. Muhammad, I don't disagree that the conversation needs to be had, and you make some good points. And there's some admirable things doing. Like, you can do things in your community that show action and show that you care, and you could be an ally for any one of these issues that's important to you. Take Brielle, for instance. She was in the conversation a couple of weeks ago because she stepped down from the Women's Commission so that they could appoint an African-American representative to it. So she took it upon herself to recognize a problem on the committee, on the Women's Commission. There's a Women's Commission in San Antonio appointed by the mayor that didn't have the proper representation that looks like San Antonio, right? That understands San Antonio, all types of people in San Antonio. So you can do things in your city that show you can be an ally, that's your issue, whatever it is, man. Get out there and get engaged on it and have a conversation about it and be able to disagree on it. That's what we've lost. And we've lost the ability to say we're not okay with being not okay sometimes. Like if we're having tough conversations, it doesn't mean that you're a racist. It doesn't mean that you're a hater. It doesn't mean that you're all these words you can possibly come up with. What it means is that we need to learn to disagree a whole heck of a lot better. And if a public vote is required to settle it, then so be it. Then put the public vote on the record and let's see where it ends up. I'm willing to bet, and I'm going to close out Clayton and this one and the PD thing with this. I am willing to bet 100% police is going to win the day in this city because this is a city of faith. It's a city of community. It's a city of law and order, of public safety, and we have the best police department in the nation. Period. And if that goes to a public vote, I'm putting my dime right on the San Antonio police officers, the men and women and the families behind them, and the good work they're doing. Because when the truth comes out, the facts bear that as plain as day. The problems of other cities aren't ours. Council members like Clayton Perry and those fighting that good battle down there, we got to stay on board with them and always try to, but be open to the other discussions. Mohammed's on here, works for Councilman Trevino in District 1. We have great discussions about this stuff, and it's okay to disagree. And at the end of the day, let's put it to a vote and see what happens. I think it's going to be a transformational next year for the city of San Antonio because who are we going to be? Are we going to try to be the best Chaz Seattle we can possibly be? Are we going to try to mirror ourselves after Austin and follow our little brother around everywhere we can? Or are we going to be San Antonio? Our goals, who we really are, based in fact and principle and our ability to make decisions. Yes, that's great for all of us. It's best for all of us. But at the end of the day, right, who San Antonio really is, if we have to vote it to get there and figure it out, let's put it on the paper and make it happen. We got some great things coming. It's going to be tough. These conversations are difficult. We had Antonio Lee, one of the protest leaders, sitting right next to us, and we had a great talk about it. And we walked out and we hugged. And we say, man, we'll catch each other next time. It's okay. We are not the city that's getting described by the San Antonio City Council or Mayor Ron Nirenberg. We're not that city at all. We are a great community. We got things we've got to work on, but I think we have an opportunity to get those things done. And if it requires a vote, we got to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. So thank you to Councilman Clayton Perry. We appreciate him. He's down there doing the best he can. So now we're going to talk to Trish DeBerry. Trish, walk on over. Come on. You can cut across my shot. Let me throw away the Perry questions.
Exactly. Throw it away.
Perry questions gone. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Sit down. Welcome
on the show.
Yes. We're sitting in this fancy spot here, and we're thankful you made it over here.
This is a fancy spot.
I know. It's
nice digs, man.
What we're gonna do is make you play the ukulele right behind us right here. You want a water?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, you can play the ukulele and get it going.
It's been a crazy campaign day. Yeah, you know what that's like, right?
I know what crazy campaign days are like.
Yes.
100. I miss it every.
I know.
Day. I'd always rather be campaining than.
It's not the end of your journey. It is not the end of your journey.
It's all good.
Yes.
So, hey, where'd you come from, anyways? Where were you at?
Is it a campaign fundraiser?
Okay,
good.
good.
Out near Fair Oaks. So great people in Fair Oaks that. Certainly sort of feel connected to the county, but not connected to the county.
It's crazy, right? That Fair Oaks is voting.
I know. Well, the size of the precinct is crazy, Greg. 536,000 people.
Yeah, it's odd when we think about countywide votes that Fair Oaks is in that. Because you get so wrapped up in being in city politics that you think it's city boundaries. But then when you run countywide.
Yeah, and you go to county line.
God,
it's crazy.
The Bear County is huge.
It's huge.
Like 2.1, 2.2
yeah,
million
at least,
people or something
right.
like that.
And all the municipalities. Yeah, when you look at Castle Hills, you look at Chavana Park, you look at Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Almus Park. The list goes on and on. Dominion, Stone Oak, Fair Oaks, Timberwood Park. I mean, it's a lot of people.
Multiple municipalities in Precinct 3. Mm-hmm. Number one tax base in all of Bear County, right?
More than 40%.
We get it. It runs from about, you're right, man. It's Fair Oaks. It goes all the way up north, takes in some of Councilman Perry's, Councilman Pelaya's district, Councilman Courage. Goes down into, I think it takes in a little bit of Councilman Trevino's as well. Huge.
Well, it goes down almost to Grayson.
Oh, wow.
South,
huge
near the Pearl.
Commissioner's precinct. So, You're in the middle of a runoff. You have an opponent who shall not be named. I'm just kidding.
Shall not be named.
Yeah,
That is the first. That's a cardinal sin.
Yeah, we
right?
will not name the opponent. But it's like, what's that movie from the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village? He who we do not name. So you're in the middle of a tough campaign. You came out in the top 2 in the runoff. Give us the update where you're at on the campaign, how you feel about things that are going in your race against your opponent for the Precinct 3 seat.
Yeah, we feel good about things. We started block walking last weekend, which I was out there with you, and I was encouraged. You know, we were out there and people wanted to talk at the door. Thought with the coronavirus, people would be reticent to open up their door. They were not. You know, we talked to people outside in their garage. I think they're always happy. It amazes me, and I love that about block walking. People love to see the candidate at the door. I mean, they like the fact that you have come to them, you're asking them for their vote, that you took the time to be able to do it. Great reaction there. We have been all over social and digital. We've had candidate forums, we've had debates. You know, anybody who's asked us, we've been there. So those have been very interesting.
Yeah, so the campaign itself, I mean, these things ramp up to a vote. So voting starts on June 29th. Early mail ballot voting is going on right now.
Right now.
You can vote by mail ballot right now.
Through July 6th.
Through July 6th, mail ballot voting is going on right now. So people are voting right now as we speak. Election day is July 14th, and it's a tough battle. There hasn't been a woman on the court in 25 years.
About 25 years.
Right. So you're in a possible history breaking mode here. And you've been in the community. People know you. They understand you. But there's still some unknowns. And look, I'm not going to.
People know I ran against Julian Castro.
Yeah, you ran for mayor.
I ran for mayor against Julian Castro.
So I've got some questions because I want to make sure. One of the things I want people to know is who you really are. And there's so much misinformation out there in the political world. And people talk a lot of garbage, right? They make things up or they say things to help themselves get elected. Imagine that. It's politics. So I want to go down because I've got some questions too that I want to make sure people know who you truly are because it is vote time.
It is. It's
and
go time.
We want them to hear it from you. And I think personally, Trish DeBerry is the best candidate in Precinct 3. I told myself a long time ago that I was always going to try to work these angles and do the best I could, but and try to make friends wherever I could. But you know what? We can't have that in our city or our county any longer. It's time to pick sides and get to work to elect the people we want to see elected. And you can't sit on the sidelines try to appease everybody.
No.
So I've learned that lesson. So I know you're the right candidate for the job. And I wholeheartedly endorse you, obviously, for the Precinct 3 Commissioner seat. I want to be 100% transparent with everybody who watches this tonight or sees this afterwards that I think you're the best candidate for the job. Period. That's it. And I'm willing to work for it first. But when I'm out there, I hear people say things, and I know them to be 100% false. So I've got
taken some flack.
I've taken some flack, of course. Look, man.
We're used to taking bullets.
It's okay.
By this point.
It's okay. So I want to answer some of these questions once and for all.
Yes.
And let's have the final question so we can cut them up and we can push them out there
and
make it happen. So they love to say that you're not a Republican, right? That you're Republican in name only. You're part of the Wolf Pack. And all these other things. What's your Republican voting record? Just
100%.
100% Republican
voting record. And look, Greg, I come from the private sector. I mean, I think if you're in the private sector, you're creating jobs for people, you're contributing money, tax money into the economy, you are eating, sleeping, and breathing Republican principles. How can you not be a conservative if you own a small business? When I see the amount of payroll taxes that go out, when I see the struggles of small business, even in this pandemic, to be able to keep businesses afloat. I mean, as a fiscal conservative and a small business owner, you know, like I said, I am like a walking example of what republicanism should be, conservative philosophy.
Well, so 100% voting record. You are a Republican. You've been registered, and I checked it myself because I wanted to verify, right? Because they were coming on and saying, "Oh, she's not a real Republican. She's a Democrat."
My dad was in the Air Force.
Your dad was in the military.
Dad was in the military. I was raised with conservative values. Yes.
Okay, so 100% Republican voting record. Toll roads is another one that pops up. I don't know why. I know why because of work with a company you work for. I don't know 15 years ago.
I've never worked for it. There are no toll roads in Bexar County. Okay,
thank you.
There are no toll roads in Bexar County. So the job when toll roads were an option, that we were a subcontractor in another firm on a contract for outreach. And that was to give a voice to people, whether you were in favor of tolls or whether you were opposed to tolls. So that's what it was. But toll roads never happened because we all decided, look, there's a better way for us to get around transportation, especially out in the 281 North area. So that's just out and out flat lie.
Okay.
I mean,
So you're anti-toll road?
Anti-toll road.
Okay, anti-toll road. And there's some comments coming up that I want to make sure I mention too. And I'm catching you. I'm watching you right here. So you donate money. You're a small business owner. You're trying to win, predominantly focused before your election. Before this campaign, you were focused on
my business, private sector.
On your business, private sector work. So you made donations across the political spectrum. Can you explain to people why you donate in certain manners or ways, or what you were trying to do with your donations?
Yeah.
You donated Democrat and Republican.
So look, I mean, I'm not a politician. I had an interview the other day and somebody said, well, what do you think about being a politician? I said, look, I've never been elected to public office and I don't consider myself a politician. First and foremost, I consider myself a smart businesswoman. And I want to give some perspective. As far as the work that we do, 80 to 85% of the work that we do is private sector work. I have worked, for a number of years, I worked for the H-E-B grocery company, the hero of this pandemic, as far as putting food on the table. Worked for years for the Baptist Health System, who are saving lives every single day. Worked for Dr. Smith's, which was a diaper cream ointment that maybe your parents use. And I've joked about the fact that maybe we can use that diaper cream down at the county when I get there. But a majority of my work is private sector. There are some public sector contracts, much like, I will tell you, Donald Trump, who in the private sector gave to Hillary Clinton, posed for pictures of fundraisers with her, gave to Planned Parenthood. I've not done any of that necessarily, but yes, there's been a nominal contribution every now and again. Yes.
Yeah, and I think
it doesn't mean I've abandoned my Republican principles, nor has Donald Trump abandoned his Republican principles. As a businessman from the private sector, he's been the best Republican president, conservative values president we've had.
Well, and I think that speaks volumes. So one of the things I wanted to make sure people knew, because they're flying that around. I mean, and
Yeah.
I don't mind defending comments and stuff like and answering stuff, because we should. They say the same thing about me,
Yeah.
right? Like they'll say, Brockhouse isn't this or Brockhouse isn't that, because how dare he work with people
Yes.
who are on the other side of the aisle?
Yeah.
So therefore, you're not Republican enough.
Well, and let me point out too, my opponent, who shall remain unnamed, has accepted political contributions from Phil Hardberger.
Oh, well.
When he was on the Fourth Court of Appeals, he sided with the most liberal side of the court, including Phil Hardberger, on more than a regular basis. Not to mention the fact, when he had the opportunity, every opportunity he had to hire Cox and Smith to put Phil Hardberger to work and give him money to practice in his courtroom, it was because of my opponent.
He did. And somebody put this out there, and it's been flying around. You gave cash to Ron Nirenberg, and you donated $500 to Ron. Now I want to tell people something very clear, because it's a fair assessment.
You're right.
Tom, I saw today. Almost said his name. Well, screw it. Tom Rickoff. He posted that you gave $500 to Ron Nirenberg. And I'm going to say this once and for all, because people brought it up to me. I said, I don't care. And the reason I don't care is because I understand, as a business owner, you're trying to win contracts. You are going to donate to everybody you can. And folks, if I'm not upset that she gave $500 to Ron Nirenberg, why the hell are you? I'm not mad about it. You have to protect your business. You have to feed people. You have to keep the contracts coming in, and a business owner is going to do what they have to do to make that happen and get effective. And look, donations are the game, and politics, it is what it is, always has been. And you work both sides of the aisle and have in your professional career. But I think, and we have to stop saying, well, this is what you did professionally, so therefore you're marked politically over here. You have how many people in your company?
23.
And you're responsible for making sure you bring in enough business to do that. So.
Right.
With the thing with Ron Nirenberg and donating to Ron, I'm going to answer that one. It's okay, people. All right? It's not the end of the world. You have to take care of your business and opportunities. And if I'm not upset about it, I don't know why you are, Tom Rickoff. Why are you mad that she gave $500? If anybody should be mad, it should be me. Because I was in a, I mean, it is what it is. Protect your people, do that. And I'm on board with that 100%.
Well, let's be honest. Why are we friends, Greg Brockhouse?
Oh, we've been friends we believe this almost nearly identical in our principles.
Because we talked almost every day.
And you were with me every time I needed a phone call during my campaign, you answered.
Yes.
Every time I had a question and needed advice, you were on the other line. You picked up like 99% of the time. I think one time you didn't answer my call.
Well, and it didn't matter what hour of the day it was. I remember I was talking at 10 o'clock at night sometimes.
Yeah, so know that, right? People need to know that. That's the kind of partnership and people we want running for office. Plus, I think Tom Rickoff in his 40 years in elected office is probably enough. So I'm looking for some new and fresh blood to help us across this entire county, across the entire city. So your small business credentials, run it down. We talked about the 23 employees. Let people know what you're doing and how you plan to handle, right, contracts in the future if elected county commissioner.
So I said this on Texas Public Radio. There will be no conflict of interest in the public sector work that we do if I'm sworn into office in November, because I will have no public sector contracts when I'm sworn into office in November. And I've also made a commitment that if I am elected, we will not pursue public sector work. So there will not be a conflict of interest, whether it's real or whether it's perceived, when I come into office, hopefully in November. But I want to push back on that a little bit too, because my opponent, who shall remain unnamed where I'm concerned,
Sorry.
Has a real conflict of interest. It's not a perceived conflict of interest. He has a real conflict of interest should his brother, Jerry, become the sheriff, and my opponent, who shall remain unnamed, becomes county commissioner. He will not be able to vote on 40% of the public safety issues and the budget of the court. And I think that that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
A huge problem. And like I said, it's not something he can say, I can walk away from it. He can't. He's his brother. He's a blood relative.
Yeah, and nothing would be worse than Tom and Jerry elected.
And well, it's kind of ironic that they're Tom and Jerry.
But
right?
hey, it is what it is.
We're not going to talk about that.
But look, you have a role to do. Sonia posted a second ago, and I always want to make sure that we include both sides. And she said, giving money is giving him support, so donate to buy. Nobody buys contracts. Trust me. I want to tell you this about donations. $500. If $500 buys you, you got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So political contributions, if you're spreading them evenly and fairly, I think that's the best way to do it as well. I mean, you got to, and in San Antonio, by the way, it's 90% elected Democrats. I mean, you to do business and to survive and to be part of the mix. So people have to understand that that's how the machine moves. And I think that what we should be more concerned with is not $500, but we should be concerned about the 500,000 people you're going to represent, and things like property taxes.
Right.
So
yeah, let's talk about the real issues.
Let's talk about the real issues. And the people who are screaming at the top of their lungs that you're not a real Republican are the people who have ran for office themselves as Republicans and never won. Never. They can't even get 10% vote. So be very careful when you run around and scream about things and you try to run for office yourself and you think you're going to get it done. And there's many people. It's not just one person. It's a few people who question credentials of people who aren't Republican enough, or you're not conservative enough, and then they go try and run and they get obliterated at the polls. Yeah. You know why?
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, because they don't speak the language of what the people are looking for.
Right.
The people aren't, at the end of the day, they want good people. And they want people that stand on principle with certain items and at least speak the truth and show up and do the job. So we answered toll roads. We answered your voting record, small business credentials, leadership. So as a small business owner, you're exhibiting your leadership and you're putting it to work every day just to keep your business afloat, especially in today's world. So what are some of those leadership traits? I want people to hear what you're going to bring to the court, because I think a lot of people will say Bexar County Commissioner's Court lacks leadership, right? It lacks back to basics.
Well, a lot of the things that I've talked about is not just bringing leadership to the court, but I think bringing leadership to the Republican Party. I mean, I think we are in severe need of some party building here in Bexar County. Look at the average age when I knock on the door. It has a tendency to skew older. I mean, we need to start bringing younger people into the party, suburban moms into the party. And I don't think we've had a very effective plan for touching people and bringing people into the party. So I want to make sure that we do that. But yes, from a leadership standpoint to the court, I've talked about this before. I became very frustrated, even as a business owner, with the Chick-fil-A issue, with no Republican National Convention here in San Antonio, that decision being made behind closed doors. And for better or for worse, I've always been the kind of person, I don't sit on the sidelines, okay? It's about getting in the mix. I want to get out there and I want to play. Life is too short not to. And so when this position came open, I've grown up in the precinct, right? I understand the opportunities and the challenges that the precinct faces. And so when we talk about property taxes, that's a real issue. I've got some big ideas when it comes to appraisal reform, so I want to bring that kind of leadership to the court. We can talk a little bit more about that in depth. But from an overall leadership standpoint, from a business wheelhouse standpoint, we've got to go in there as somebody, as a small business who has survived not just 9/11 and the downturn in the economy, The mortgage lending crisis in 2009, the downturn in the economy there, business made it through that, and now, who'd have thunk it? I'd be trying to operate a business in the midst of a global pandemic. That is the kind of leadership that we want, because you know what? You got to make tough decisions. You have to contract budgets. You have to implement hiring freezes. One of my passions right now is talking about city-county consolidation. I'm so tired of us talking about this, and we've talked about it for years. It is time to walk the walk. I think now, more importantly than ever, when the city and county are talking to each other, we need to look at that very, very hard from an efficiency standpoint and cost-saving standpoint. We have 2 economic development departments. We have 2 budgets there. We have 2 big staffs there. Public Works, we have 2 staffs. We have 2 budgets. Why aren't we really taking a hard look? And that is the kind of leadership that I want to bring to the court.
Yeah, it's not enough to go down there and just say Nelson Wolff sucks. I mean, that's not enough. I mean,
no, and
that's what I think your opponent offers, which is he ran against Nelson and got obliterated for county judge. And so, and then you turn around, now he's running for precinct 3. And I think if you can go down there and you could try to, you can get nothing done. And it sucks. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've been on the short end. I've been on the short end. It stinks of votes where you're not getting it done. So I think you have to have some camaraderie to be able to work and get things done. And I learned that at City Hall. That was a learning lesson for me too. It's not fun to be on the end of a 10-1 vote. But sometimes you vote your principles and you got to do what you got to do. So
you talked to Clayton. Clayton's had to do that too.
Clayton has to do it. So it's not always fun like that to be there. But to get on that court so some people say, oh, she's part of the Wolf Pack. I think what I'm hearing for you from, being that Kevin Wolff and Nelson Wolff, that's one of the arguments, right? Kevin's a Republican. But anyways, the Wolf Pack with Nelson. The problem is I think you are a lone wolf, and that freaks people out.
Right.
And it will freak the establishment out down there because they're not used to, number one, you're different than any of them that's been there for 25 years.
Right.
And you're coming down with a different set of credentials and leadership style. And frankly, you're going to get stuff done. And at the very least, you can put the argument together in a very cohesive and educated manner, not just going down there screaming that the county's on fire.
Look, I mean, everything I've done my entire life has not been 100%. It's been 120% or whatever. When I get in, I dig in. I've said since I entered this race, I am not a seat warmer. I'm a deep diver. And so when I look at tackling difficult topics like appraisal reform, when I look at tackling difficult topics like putting people back to work or, looking at shovel-ready projects that we can implement to be able to put people back to work, those are the kinds of things that I want to dig into. And I know my opponent has a problem with my ideas on appraisal reform. Never mind the fact that he has no ideas when it comes to appraisal reform. So I can say right now effectively he's against appraisal reform. One of the ideas is, I've talked about, I want to make sure the board of directors of the appraisal district is elected and not appointed because the chief appraiser has a hand in those appointments. And so I don't think that that's fair representation to the taxpayer. If I get this seat, I want to be on the board of the appraisal district right now when I get in, and I want to make sure that I have not just one voice in myself representing the taxpayer, but I have multiple voices that are representing the taxpayer. And granted, we've got to be, since the county is a jurisdiction of the state, it is a heavy lift. But like I said, if we don't try and we don't at least try to address the conversation, much like term limits, much like campaign contributions, I mean, the county's operated a little bit like the Wild West. Well,
they have very little oversight.
So I talk about accountability, transparency. It's been a very long time since there has been an office in the precinct, a field office in the precinct. People who have a concern and want to talk to the county commissioner right now face-to-face typically have to drive all the way downtown. They got to park. They got to go through security.
No one's going downtown.
And so, we have a justice of the peace, office right there off Nakoma. It used to be the old ADP payroll building, I think. And so it's a prime place to be able to have an office and meet people there, 3 days out of the week or whatever, when we're not in court. And I think that's healthy. That's healthy for the precinct simply because of the fact it's so big.
Well, appraisal reform, it's one of the, if not the top topic. I'll take that back. Even in the county now, public safety is ratcheting up quickly to be a top issue.
Right.
The appraisal reform piece is important because people just got there. I mean, they were just receiving.
No, we have more than 100,000 people contesting their property taxes.
That speaks volumes. That's a number I didn't know.
Yeah.
So 100,000 people.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, 100,000 people, and most people you talk to, it's a very intimidating process. If you go to
it's going to scare them.
If you go to my Facebook page, I had conversations with Kenny Velasquez about this is what you need to do. It is your duty as a taxpayer to contest those taxes. Most times, You don't win, but you got to at least put your voice out there.
And the county's answer right now is to rename the appraisal board.
Oh my gosh.
That's what their answer is.
It's deflecting responsibility.
Instead of the Bexar County Appraisal District.
It's going to be the Texas Appraisal District.
The Texas Appraisal District. That's an answer right now, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's deflecting from the fact
that's right.
that it's not the commissioners raising the rates.
No,
I get
and
it.
I also think, like I said, it's got to be a more customer-friendly process because right now it's not. I mean, I think, the odds are in favor of the appraisal district, not necessarily the taxpayer.
Man, stacked odds. So
don't like that.
So appraisal reform, solid. Public safety, we know there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
The city of San Antonio is talking about defunding police.
That's crazy.
And they're talking. So give us a rundown of, because you're in charge of that. You have the sheriff's department, and Javier Salazar is going to be working with you for budget needs and all those other things, because Javier Salazar is going to beat Jerry Rickoff. He's got no experience. But so that's we know Javier Salazar is going to be the sheriff again. But in this particular case, you have a budget, and they're asking to reduce that budget as well. So there's a lot of conversations about reducing public safety. Give us your rundown and thought on what you're thinking about this defund police movement, what it means to the safety and security of people in the precinct, and how you'd approach that on the court.
Well, I mean, first of all, let me say I am proud to have the endorsement of the San Antonio Police Officers Association, Sheriff's Deputy Association here in San Antonio. My father's a military veteran. I had an executive assistant whose husband serves on SAPD, and so I certainly see the worry in her eyes too. Every day when her husband was out on the street, especially on the overnight or the dog watch shift. I mean, it's a difficult job, and I have mad respect for the men and women in blue that are out there every single day protecting our safety. So the call to defund, look, the pendulum has swung far too far the other way regarding the call for defunding police departments, because what are we left with if that happens? It's complete anarchy.
Community ambassadors.
No, which is not good.
I think that's what they want to bring.
Yeah, and armed militias or whatever. No. Look, do there need to be reforms? Absolutely. And I like the fact that I have the endorsement of police officers and the deputy sheriff so that I'm at least able to have that conversation to say, hey, when disciplinary action needs to be taken, and we need to be stricter about that, what are your ideas? How do we make that happen? And it's not just, to your point, it's not enough for my opponent to say no, because you know what? That's easy. What's really hard is saying yes to the right things that ethically are right. They're good for the economy. They're going to put people back to work and are going to respect the police officers that we have on the street every single day. And you're absolutely right. The jail is a hot mess. I mean, I don't know what more to say about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it'll require a lot of work.
You don't even you don't have to have a get out of jail free card to be able to walk out of the jail. I mean, we've got some problems. And when I entered the race, we actually called Javier's office. This was pre-COVID. I wanted to go down and I wanted to tour the jail. I doubt that that's something that my opponent asked to do. We weren't allowed to go in at that time because I was a candidate, but yeah, I mean, we've got some real problems there, and I've got some sound, I think, business ideas around that and what needs to be done. I've had conversations with deputy sheriffs about those ideas. They seem to be on board for the most part with that. So, yeah, and I go back to the fact that my opponent, from a public safety standpoint, would not be able to take that vote.
Yeah,
that's problematic.
It's problematic, and I'm not sure Jerry Rickoff has a chance to win, whatever. But I mean, Javier Salazar's, he probably will be the sheriff. Let's be blunt here. He's probably going to win because these Rickoffs jumped into these races and they're destroying opportunity. I believe that at some point you have to turn the page, right? Look, all due respect, we have to turn the page from the Castros. We have to turn the page from Cisneros.
Right.
We have to turn the page from Wolf. We have to turn the page from, eventually it's going to be this whole cabal, right? And it's always the same people. Mm-hmm. It's always the same people. These are the same names. So turn the page means, and the Rickoff name has been in there for 40 years. So new blood is needed. So at the end of the day, vote. Obviously, whoever you feel you most closely aligned with, I'm fine with that. But I think the county and the city need a bit of a purge, right? Because it needs a different look.
A voice, a different perspective.
You can't be seeding and controlling these things for the last 25 years and then complaining about the results that you're producing.
Yeah, and the problem that I have with that, you have someone who has fed at the public trough for 40 years, whose salary has been paid by taxpayers, who's never worked in the private sector, who called the PPP loans to small businesses a government bailout that he was opposed to, which tells me how completely out of touch he is as a small business not having worked in the private sector. Like I said, 85% of the economy is built on the backs of small business. And so through no fault of their own, other than the fact it was a global pandemic, many have already lost their businesses. Many are desperately trying to stay afloat, but you're going to call a PPP a government bailout.
Well, the government stepped in, right? Because they shut down.
Exactly.
So the government mandates the shutdown, just like the government and Nelson Wolff has mandated these masks or pay a $1,000 fine to the business.
Which I have a problem with.
So they are coming after that, and I'll let you address that in a second, but they're coming after businesses. They have been, and they produce 80+% of the jobs in our community.
Right.
Small business does.
Right.
So Nelson comes out the other day, and I don't, who knows his intentions, but I don't know. We don't know who he's talking to. We don't know anything. All I know is him and Ron are running around, and they're passing these mandates. Clayton Perry said they don't even get talked to at the council about these things. So here comes this mandate to wear masks, or businesses will get fined $1,000 an instance. How do you feel about the overreach, the apparent overreach?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's how I would characterize it. It's government overreach. It is hard enough as a small business owner, and I know this myself when I talk about, I see the amount of taxes that go out the door associated with business. It's not like government typically makes it easy. They like to say, oh, of course, it's we're inspiring small businesses and we want more small businesses, but they don't necessarily make it very easy. And so This is yet another example of government overreach. I mean, I've talked to a lot of restaurateurs who are hurting, and even at the 75% capacity, it's hard to make business work, the business model work, because their tables have to be so far apart. So it's not like they can still take in 75% of the customers that they used to. So on top of that, now you're putting another hardship on that business, by saying, you have to wear a mask when you walk in here.
Then you have to tell customers.
Right.
You have to enforce the law.
Right, and tell them they better wear it or they're going to be fined.
Or you kick them out.
Right.
Pitting business owners against their customers is a bad position for any customer. So last question.
So
and then,
I want to say too, understanding we've got to manage the safety and health and safety of our population. But I've long said, even before businesses open back up, we have to be balanced about what we do here. We've got to open the economy and develop a herd immunity of some sort, spread out testing, making sure we've got more testing associated with corona. But we've got to keep businesses open, and we can't make it harder on them.
Yeah, because at the end of and you bring up a great point before I get to the question, I want you to make a closing argument for people. But at some point, right, and who knows, people ask me all the time, well, what would you have done differently, right? Like, you got all these ideas. You can say this person stinks and they're going to go to their job. What would you have done differently? And we can say that. That's the beauty. Hey, that's the beauty of having your own podcast, man. But you have to be able to have some solutions and get after it. You mentioned herd immunity. You mentioned opening up the city, and the governor attempting to open up the state. We're seeing increases again.
There's a lot of traffic on the road today.
Yeah, city calling it, second wave. And a lot of misinformation coming out of the media. We know that. We see it. It's difficult to get right from wrong. But I don't know. When you say herd immunity and you're talking about putting people back, I agree with you. I think at some point, and I don't know how you would have done it. You have to really work with the experts. You have to isolate those who are most at risk.
Exactly. Yeah, the highly compromised.
The highly compromised, the immunocompromised, diabetes. I mean, the people at high risk with underlying conditions that have problems, right? That this is a death sentence for.
Yes.
It's an isolate that perspective. It's ramp up testing and communication, and then it's get back to work and open the doors, because you're just as liable nowadays. Hey, we got back to work, but if it would have gone on and people weren't eating, people weren't getting food, they weren't getting paychecks, there's many things you can die from besides COVID-19. You could starve. I mean, people were not, there were 10,000 cars lined up at the food bank because they didn't have food.
Well, I volunteered in that food bank line, so I looked in the eyes of people who were so grateful, because they were like, look, I had a job. I was furloughed from a job. I don't have a job anymore. I never thought I would be in this circumstance. And then you look at the level of, we just came off of Mental Health Month, right? You look at depression sets in. You look at suicide rates associated with people not having a job. I mean, the impact associated with keeping the economy shut down is far greater than what coronavirus could be.
Yeah, and it's not a conversation. People say, well, man, one death is too many deaths. We all agree on these things. Like, these aren't things we disagree on. But at some point, it has to open back up. I think that's what the governor attempted to do. Yeah, we had this hiccup with the masks and businesses. People are not pleased with the governor on that right now. But you're doing the best you can with the information he had, and I think he's got to have a rationale behind that. But at the end of the day, you know what? it's a tough thing to work on. It's a tough thing to say, but you have to these things had to open back up to get in a position. And there is personal responsibility with wearing masks. And I wear my mask.
I do too.
Right now we're sitting at a table. If you're at a restaurant, you sit at a table, you don't have to wear your mask, right? When you walk in. So there's a lot of personal accountability that people should bank on. I see it as, look, man, people went hog wild at Memorial Day, and here's the spike, right? And guess what? Probably not the wisest thing to have done. The second part is all these protesters and looters and the thousands walking downtown. Expect another spike from that. Because those people weren't even following any of the rules, and Ron Nirenberg's protesting with them right in the middle, not masked. So all these things are issues that we could have led better on, I think, as a community, city, and information. And I think hit the nail on the head, which is get back to work and develop, right, the herd immunity factor to it. Plasma. There's all these things that are out there. Yeah, we get sidetracked with hydroxychloroquine, with all these other things that are media issues. But at the end of the day, you have to save the community. I mean, and saving the community is more than just COVID-19. It's also businesses, families, lifelong wealth.
Yes.
I mean, it's a type of decision that no elected official wants to make. But to your point earlier, you need the person that's going to make the right decision. So give us your closing argument, a couple things you want to work on when you become the county commissioner, and let us know what you love about what's happening and what you're looking forward to.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like I said, I want to bring that business skill set to the court, which I think is important. I think it's been a long time since we've had a true fiscal conservative on the court, somebody who is going to take a look at that budget, who's going to cut discretionary spending. It's a $2 billion budget. We're facing more than a $100 million shortfall at the county. I talked more about city-county consolidation. I certainly think that that's something that we need to look at. I think with the amount of debt that the county has taken on, we've got to look at refinancing that debt, but we've got to open up revenue streams to be able to put people back to work. I think as an entrepreneur, I've always been innovative. I've always been able to pivot very quickly. And I think my employees, even though it's a great culture, and my kids would tell you that I'm a very decisive person. And when I dig in hard, whether it's been passing legislation for cyberbullying to protect kids from cyberbullying, which, by the way, nobody said that could happen. I mean, they said that won't happen in the legislature. It did happen.
That's a great, just real quick. I don't want to cut off your role there, but tell that, I mean, just make sure people know about David's
David Molak was a young man who took his life as a result of intense cyberbullying, and he was 2 years older than my son. And it's one of those things where you think, therefore, by the grace of God, go I. And I thought, that could have been my son. And so, like I said, I've always been one of those people who said, I'm not going to sit things out on the sidelines. I'm going to get in. And so I didn't even know the parents of David Molak. I talked to a friend of mine. I said, can you set up a meeting? And so I talked to Maureen Molak. And then I said, look, we need to develop a website, a clearinghouse for people to be able to find help through attorneys, pro bono, what have you. We need to look at what are your goals? We want to pass legislation. We want to pass David's Law. And so we started down that path, and I will tell you, I'm not taking one red cent for the work that we've done on that, and we probably have done close to $250,000 worth of free work because our children deserve to be protected. We live in an age where people, as I see, even on my Facebook page, that they say things behind a screen that they would never say to your face. And so it becomes even more intense when it comes to teenagers and children. And so that was an opportunity to be able to protect kids in the day and age in which we live. And so I think that's a prime example
it was a great much needed law.
Thank you. And thank you for your support on council.
It was an amazing law. The strength of Mrs. Molak was
incredible.
Incredible.
She's a great lady, and they're a great family.
It's a great law, and you can learn more about David's Law. Just Google
Go to the website.
Go to the website.
Yeah, I'm always trying to push it. Yeah, because it's a passion project of mine. I mean, it really is. It's been incredibly fulfilling.
And this is another thing I'm going to tell you. We'll close up on this piece and I'll wrap up because Salo's giving me the hook.
He's not.
He's not.
Yeah, Salo, I'm having too much fun.
I will say this. You mentioned something that I think deserves mentioning. And you said the names they've called you. I saw those names. And people need to know this. These people that are, and they're Republicans doing it. So people post out there and then they come in and, keyboard warriors go to town. And I'm fine with that. And I try to make people understand it's impossible to, it's so sad to watch it and read it. Somebody's really used some pretty vulgar words against you. They did it against me. They did it against my wife while campaigning.
Right.
You people need to get a life. Stop trashing human beings from a personal level on social media. If somebody runs for office, they've got the courage to do it. If you don't agree with them, the best response is to go vote
Don't vote
the
for
hell
them.
against them.
Right.
Don't vote for them. But to call you the B word and to say all the, I don't even want to say it because my son's probably watching, my wife's watching. Just think of the most vulgar words you can say. I saw those on posts about Trish.
Well,
and you want to know? I'm gonna. This one's on me right here. Hold on. I know my wife's gonna be. Let her talk. But the reason that the last straw why I jumped in was number one, I love you and I think you're gonna be great in the job. I think you're gonna kill it and we need you down there. But number two was I got sick of seeing people saying abusive things. I'm like, come on, man. This is not what politics should be. I don't care how bad it gets, how upset you are. You don't need to use language and words like that to describe somebody you disagree with. I don't know how, I know you saw it.
I did.
But
yeah. Well, I mean, you
sorry for the rant.
You develop, look, if you're going to run for office, you got to develop thick skin.
I get
and
it,
but it's still, it would be nice to be able to keep the campaign focused on substantive issues because we have a lot of work that needs to be done at the county. And so I'm ready to dig in. So, when I've been in debates with my opponent, he doesn't have a platform. All he does is go on the
he rails
attack.
against you.
Yes. Right.
So,
that's his platform.
His platform is that.
That's
but
his
I
platform.
just had to rant there at the last minute because I didn't get to rant this whole broadcast, and I wanted to rant on that one.
Look, I don't mind it, but my kids had seen some of it, and so they're ready to come to my defense, and I'm just like,
So people need to know that too, right? Like when you trash somebody like that, their children and family are reading that.
yeah,
People would say things about you, and I didn't think about that too. Like when it happened to me, my kids saw that. Mm-hmm. And I have a daughter, Emma, she's 26, and somebody said some really horrific things. So my daughter got on Facebook and started face fighting with them. Right. And I'm like, I had to text her and say, hey, babe, it's all good. Let it go.
I know.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
But if you can't, within your own Republican Party, treat each other with respect and courtesy and just disagree
Agreed.
and fight the points, argue the facts, then you got problems, Republicans. And that's why you never win seats. You never win seats because you're tearing each other down, using words that I just beyond me to describe a candidate. So courage to kudos to you.
We need to be uniting the party, not dividing the party, and we need to be building it.
Boom.
Otherwise,
So,
the Republican Party is going to go nowhere in Bexar County.
all right, good. That's a good wrap up. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now I got to wrap up for a minute. Let me see. What can I say here? Thank
You're
you.
never at a loss for words.
Thank you, Clayton Perry. We appreciate you coming out. Thank you, Trish, for being
course.
with us.
Of
And
course.
I will wrap with that little piece about what the end of that was. And this is a shout to Republicans. And I've had a couple of Republicans on the show tonight, right? Last week we had protesters. Before that we had a Democrat. I mean, it's everybody's welcomed here. But this is a straight shot to the Republican Party. You need to get out of your own way. All right, if you attempt to destroy each other, and this Precinct 3 race is a great example, the words used to describe the opponents, I was pretty disgusted by, right? So I'm like, man, but I saw it before in other campaigns, and people just really have no other argument other than this person's a blank, 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 and I'm not going to, just don't vote, man. Like, don't show up and don't vote. Go vote for the other person. And if you need to make a logical argument or excuse, go do it. I'm okay with that. Get to the facts and the points. There are people on this feed that I see posting and making comments right now. Yes, I 100% don't agree with what you're saying, but come on my show anytime. Hell, Iris Dimmick just joined on right there. Iris Dimmick writes for the Rivard Report. I can't stand the Rivard Report. I can't stand it. I think it's not a very good periodical. Iris Dimmick's a good writer, and we can sit down and have conversations, and we disagree, and she puts the fair points on there. She's a damn good journalist. So you don't throw the whole baby out because the bathwater's out of whack, and somebody doesn't meet you 100%. Doesn't make them any less of a human being that you can't offer them the common courtesy to run a fair campaign and get after it. So I don't know. I'll close it with the rant, but just to say, Republicans, dig in a little bit more. I mean, really? I mean, your whole argument is that somebody's not Republican enough. I got to tell you, sometimes that's okay. All right? Sometimes it's okay to work across the other side of the aisle. Sometimes it's okay to say, Roberto Trevino, I'm going to work with you on this one because I tell you what, I think we can do better here or there. I don't like you on this one, but I'm with you on that one. Clayton Perry and I disagreed and voted differently. Get with the facts that we're trying to do the best we can for San Antonio and let the votes fall where they may. We're seeing it with defund police right now. That's going to be a battle. We're seeing it with budget cuts. We're seeing it right across the line when it comes to transportation, that things have been moved across our city. Things are different. And if we do not have an ability, the one thing I hope we fix over time is our ability to argue it, disagree, and part San Antonians, not even friends anymore. Just part San Antonians after something better and let the vote fall where they may, man. No better score than a public vote. And I can speak it because I've been on both sides of it. Won it and lost it. And it hurts both ways because if you win, you got to go down there and do the job. And it isn't easy and it's painful. And as much as I disagree with 10 out of the 11 people down at City Hall, I'm going to give them the respect that at least they're doing the job. They showed up and put their name on a ballot and they won. Okay? And if they're going to win and they're going to keep fighting, then I'll see them on the other side of the debate. And eventually I'm going to get there and I'm going to win and I'm going to continue. But I'm not going to win every issue. So Republicans, get it straight that you could do better by just being more human and respectful of differences. I can't tell you enough how we need to elect people that are new, fresh, different, and different gender. Oh my goodness, different color. It's okay to elect them and put them out there. The same old same has gotten you nothing but 10% of the elected officials in San Antonio. Imagine that. So you have nowhere but upside, room to grow, get together, work together, be better than some of the things I've seen in the county commissioner precinct race where you're trashing somebody in horrific. So I did, done it, finished. All I got to say is get after it, be better. You know what Republican, one of them root words is? Republic. The Republic is made up of so many vast and different human beings that you got to get outside yourself and recognize the differences. I struggle with it, sure. I have firm beliefs, but I'm going to try to do better, and we're going to try to be that on the broadcast. Like it, share it, tag it every Thursday night, 6:15. We thank our guests. We thank our sponsors, but most of all, we thank you. Join us when you can. Get on and argue. Everybody's welcome. Voting starts June 29th. Election day is July 14th. Get out and vote. Monday, wear your mask, or Ron Nirenberg showing up at your house for a $1,000 money order. I'll see ya. The broadcast is out.